a proud member of the Earglue Media family of podcasts.
Welcome back to the Film Appraisers, the podcast that evaluates your favorite films. Each episode, we discuss a film brought to us by a guest or a listener, and then we appraise it in each of the following categories: narrative, music, technique, uniqueness, and longevity. Each category can receive a maximum $20,000 or a possible $100,000 for the most valuable film. And then we see where it stands next to the classics and other films brought to us by guests or listeners. My name is Josh, and today the Discord users have spoken clearly. The patients are running the asylum now. It's complete anarchy. We're going to talk about a film that was requested originally from our listener list, but it's been forced. I mean, it has been suggested by a lot of our wonderful friends from the Discord. Today we're going to talk about the 2001 comedy from Brian Helgeland. It's A Knight's Tale, and that stars Heath Ledger, Mark Addy, Alan Tudyk, Rufus Sewell, Shannon Sossamon, and Paul Bettany. This is episode 39, A Knight's Tale. No, just kidding. I'm not going to do that to you. Let's go with Joust, Mercy, and Stars. With me, as always, I have the pride, the privilege, nay, the pleasure of introducing you to a podcaster sired by podcasters, a host who you can trace his lineage back beyond the Cantina cast. I first met him atop a mountain near Jerusalem, praying to God, asking his forgiveness for the blood split by his words through the microphone. Next, he amazed me still even further in Italy when he saved a fatherless beauty from the would-be ravishings of an inferior film podcast. In Greece, he spent a year in silence just to better understand the sound of a whisper. And so, with no more ado, I give you the seeker of serenity, the protector of Italian ears, the enforcer of our trade. It's the one, the only, Sir Joseph von Kanenstein.
I mean, I gotta tell you, I was really hoping you'd introduce me as the defender of my enormous manhood, but I'll take that.
That is a quote from the film. That is definitely a quote from the film.
You can bleep that.
Not
if you
my
have
words. That is not my words. That is a quote from the film. I gotta say, man, that might have been my favorite introduction of you so far. We've done what, 39, 40?
Yeah, I mean,
something of these.
I feel like you probably could have screened it a little bit, but it was pretty good. I liked it a lot.
I'm running on like 4 hours of sleep here, so yeah, I think actually, and you're running on pretty low sleep too, so it's going to be really interesting on how this heads.
Sneak peek to the pre-show that is just us talking. We forgot where we were while talking to each other like 12 times. So buckle up, folks. It's going to be a good one.
But at least we have a fun movie to talk about. It's not some serious art house film. It was perfect for what we were going through in our busy lives here lately. I also know somebody else, though, that watched it. I know this because guess who I ran into at the supermarket? You know who it is. It's our third host.
I was really hoping you wouldn't say. I was really hoping, when I heard he was let go, I was really hoping I just wouldn't have to hear his name ever again. But sounds like he's just trying to be part of our lives forever. Keep getting texts from him. He's accidentally bumping into you out in the wild.
Yeah.
Quotes.
He said you were telling him that he could come back.
I haven't answered him.
Okay.
I haven't. Actually, I've blocked his number.
Yeah, he's positioning. That's exactly what he's doing. He's doing a little bit of politicking here to see if he can get his job back. I don't know. He's talking. He's barking up the wrong tree here. He needs to go talk to Morgan.
Yeah, I can't hire him back. I don't have that authority. No. Thank God.
We do not have that authority. Well, we don't need him. I mean, we have a good show here, and we've got a good show planned following this discussion, the after show. Patreon.com/filmappraisers. That's the site where you can sign up for that bonus material. After shows, just, Joe and I keep the discussion going. I'd say without guardrails on it, kind of.
Yeah. You have to guardrail me a little bit because if you don't, I go places, but it's pretty odd. It's fairly without guardrails.
Yeah, they're like the bumpers and the gutters.
Yeah,
that's a bowling alley.
It's like bumper bowling a little bit. It's like a general direction, but it's not quite so defined.
Exactly.
If you put me in a field, the pants come off, right? Like it just gets wild.
And that is the bonus content that you get if you decide to become a patron of the show. You also get our other bonus content. We do reactions episode, which, Joe, we were told by our folks that, we told our folks that we were doing a Mortal Kombat. Man, I messed that up. That was 100% my fault. Guys, sorry about that. With cinema back in full swing, though, man, we got plenty of choices. There's so many films every weekend. We're gonna have
and you can't take the whole burden on that. That was Life's fault because we bounced back and forth on trying to schedule a day, and it just couldn't. We just couldn't.
It was tough.
Both of us, yeah. It was. We've both been just like crazy busy, but do not fear. Reactions are coming back. It's just, it's a matter of when, not if, and it shouldn't be too much longer.
No, and if you've got suggestions for films that are coming this year that you'd like to hear in a reactions episode, by all means, send them our way. We'd be more than happy to take a look at it.
I'd really like to do a Fast 9 one because I love those movies. That's probably going to be the first thing I go back for.
I'm missing 2 through 8 though. I haven't seen 2 through 8.
You don't need,
and you've told me
you don't need to see 2, 3, or 4. Really, you can start back with 5.
Yeah, I did see the magnets on the cars and whatnot in the trailer.
They're not car movies anymore. They're absolutely bonkers. They're just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it's good. It's good fun. A lot like this movie too. This movie's just good fun. You know, it's don't take yourself too serious. Just get in there. Let's just be entertained, and that's what you get from this film. I really was surprised.
There are moments of this film though that are shockingly emotionally resonant, considering the film itself. You don't expect like the acting chops to show up the way they do when they do, or like, you know, there's some like, you know, father son stuff that hits pretty good. Like there is stuff in this movie that you don't see coming the first time you see it. Well, at least I don't remember seeing it. This was your first viewing though, if I remember correctly. So maybe you could comment more about how that stuff landed for you seeing it. But
it was my first viewing. I'll be honest with you. I was reluctant based on just my own.
You were more than reluctant.
Preconceived.
You were reluctant is a very soft way to put how you felt about doing this.
I had a preconceived expectation that I think started from the trailer, which is like 20 years ago, right? This film's from 2001. I remember very vividly the trailer having the "We Will Rock You" in it, and me just thinking, I don't want to see that, and especially at the time. Like at the time, it was like a lot of things that come out and are popular. They just seem to be more annoying than anything, and they were really pushing the whole "We Will Rock You," and I don't know. I just felt like this is going to annoy me more than I'm going to enjoy it, so I just never did it. And so, yeah, that's my fault though, because I had a good time with it. It was from, I'll tell you when I knew I was going to have a good time with it, when we listened to the soundbite. When we listened to the soundbite with Paul Bettany doing the cane on the barrel, and he's doing the like a birdie on a twig or something like that. I laughed as I was listening to that.
And you can hit me all day because you punch like a what? A girl.
It was fun. It's really fun, and it's funny. It is a funny film. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did.
There are some bits in this, like it really does hit like the whole, maybe I shouldn't say the whole, but it hits a really wide comedic range here, because there are like silly physical comedy bits in this, but also like clever dialogue heavy bits. Like, you know, Chaucer's, you know, Paul Bettany's character, his intros are not like punchline funny, but they are so over the top and like lean in so hard that they are hilarious. But then there's also like shots of Alan Tudyk like trying to jump over the list, and Bettany just knocking him down. Like there's just like pratfalls and stuff, but like it really does hit kind of a whole big range of comedy. And honestly, I don't think there's any jokes or physical or spoken that don't land. I laugh kind of constantly through the whole film. It's really effective.
There's some subtlety to the jokes too. Like when we first meet, and for me, that Paul Bettany is just the best part about this film. He plays that role so well, And they didn't want that. The studios did not want Paul Bettany. It took the director multiple attempts to get Paul Bettany, to convince the studio to let Paul Bettany do this. They were suggesting all these other people. They even suggested like Drew Carey and people like that. Oof. But what got them is the subtle comedy that when he shows up and he's naked, we first seen in the film, he's naked. What got the studios is when he bent down with his head and pulled the thorn out of his foot with his teeth and spit it out. So rumor is that's what nailed the studio, and they said, "All right, fine, let's go with this guy. He's hilarious." It's a good thing they did because he steals the show.
So I feel like he is definitely the best part for sure for me. But I do have to say, like, Heath Ledger plays more of the straight man, which is important in comedy, right? And he is fantastic as the straight man. But the like uncontrolled emotion and physical comedy from Alan Tudyk is really great in this too. Like he's very over the top and very silly, but also like regardless, it makes me laugh. He makes me laugh a bunch in this. But like you said, Paul Bettany, especially, I mean, like the scene where they hit his first intro when he is so excited to be like given a chance, right? He's like he's just been saved. He's got a chance, and he gets out there and he does this huge grand intro, and the crowd is just dead silent. It's so funny, and it's so good. I really like everything he does in this. This movie would have been less than without him.
Yeah. And that whole cast, the chemistry among the whole cast, you can definitely tell that they got along well. I think that came through. Yeah. From their relationships with each other.
We talked about that with another film. I can't remember what it was. Where there are just some films where the cast's off-screen relationship shows up in their on-screen performances, and it makes a like intangible difference where they just you can feel closeness. Like I can just imagine, especially, Heath Ledger, Paul Bettany, Alan Tudyk, and Mark Addy, like that that group feels very much like they went out drinking like every night, right? Like they just have that like camaraderie kind of feel to them.
I saw an interview with the director, and he said that these guys got along so well that later in his life, not after Heath Ledger died, but later, so I guess between 2001 and 2006, he would be in town and give Heath Ledger a call, and Heath would say, "Hey, Mark's here, Bettany's here, we're going out. Hey, come with us." He said that they stayed so tight throughout the rest of their careers that every time they all got together, it was like they all got together. I don't know if you saw any of the Friends reunion, but there was something in the Friends reunion where they said those 6 actors were so close that in their lives, whenever they went to a party, if one of them ran into the other one, that was it. They spent the whole night together. They hung out the rest of the night.
And that's way more common in, at least anecdotally, like from what I've heard, that's way more common in TV because if you get along, if you don't end up hating the people, if you get along, you spend 10 years doing a TV show, right? Like your lives become intermixed. It's not as common with a film because it's, film's usually maybe 6 months, but every once in a while you watch a film and you can tell they clicked. And this is one of those films you can tell everybody clicked. I mean, I mentioned the 4 mains, but I mean, even the other interactions, like, it wasn't quite as strong, but I still felt like there was a lot of chemistry between the group and Cade, and even with Jocelyn, who I feel like, we talked about it a little bit. Her acting, Shannon Sossman's acting, not a shining example for the film, but it wasn't bad. I feel like maybe it looked worse than it was because she was with some like real heavy hitters to compare her to.
Yeah. Yeah, she's acting among
some real greats.
Real who are going to go on and do some really good things. I think about what Alan has done and what obviously what Bettany has done, and what
all
Ledger
of them.
did.
Ledger, even Addie,
yeah,
who's like, he maybe hasn't hit that same level, but I mean, I think of him first season Game of Thrones and stuff. I mean, he really does have some chops on him. But
I didn't realize you had told me that was the same actor before I watched this, but I never thought about that the whole time until I was putting the names together for the show notes.
He looks so different.
Crap, that is the Game of Thrones.
He looks so different.
What, Baratheon?
Yeah. But like I said, even with her, the group, like the forgot the word, chemistry is, there it is, killing it. The chemistry is really apparent the whole way through.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's even like, even though it's a smaller part, there's even like a familiarity detectable between, and I am forgetting the actor's name, but the actor who played the Edward, like the Black Prince of Wales, he even feels like he spent more time on set than he had to, right? Like there's like when that scene, there's a couple scenes he had with Heath Ledger where they like actually converse, felt a little more genuine than you would expect from somebody who has like 3 scenes of speaking dialogue with the other characters, right? Like they feel a little more real or a little more chemistry laden than you would expect. Like it's obviously this was not like an Academy Award winning drama for actor or something like that, right? But it ascends what you expect out of this type of film by a lot.
Well, we completely missed the log line.
Yeah, we were just running. Yeah, we did. I noticed that we were just
running show notes.
We were just doing our thing.
But that's right. I'll give it to us, and then let's talk about the elements of the film that actually make this something we can evaluate. If no one has ever seen this film and you're going to go see it, after the master dies, a peasant squire, fueled by his desire for food and glory, I like how they put that too in the same sense, food and glory, creates a new identity for himself as a knight.
Although I feel like the food part is very specifically Alan Tudyk's character.
Yeah, he hasn't eaten in 3 days. 3 days.
He talks about food all the time, and then even when they're writing the letter to Jocelyn, and they're all talking about their like past relationships and adding a little bit of like what their love life was, adding a line to the letter. His like previous love that he's pining over, the first thing he says is she was a chef for the Duke of whatever, and he's just talking about food again. It's all food all the time with him.
That's good. I didn't pick up on that, but you're right. He did do that.
It's just always food with him. It's fantastic.
Well, let's break it down into our categories. So narrative, music, technique, uniqueness, and longevity. We will lead it off with narrative. Narrative being everything you see on the screen. The mise en scène. It's the acting. It's the costumes. It's the lighting. It's the story. It's the plot. It's everything that you're going to see come in front of you on the screen. What are your thoughts on the narrative, Joe?
So I have a few. So first, like we spent the whole, we got off the rails talking about how good the comedy and acting was in this. And I know typically it's really easy to reward dramatic acting and really easy to overlook comedic acting because it feels different. But the comedic acting in this is so good. I mean, there is some dramatic acting in this too that is also very good. It's just not a lot of it. But the timing and delivery really makes the movie. Like this film would just not be the same if like you said, like we said, if you took really any of the 4 main that core group out and replaced them, I feel like this film falls apart. Like it is really, really dependent on their performances, and they all really nail it. And they all go on to have great careers. So it shows. We were talking about this a little before. I never really picked up on it when I was first watching this when it came out. But you go back to this after seeing where Heath Ledger's career went before his untimely passing, and you can see shades of like how great his career is going to be. You can see where he's going. The dialogue, the written humor in this. I mean, there's a really great, like I said, there's a great mix of like the low hanging fruit and also like the clever dialogue heavy humor. I mean, you get everything from like, it's called a lance, hello, all the way up to all the way up to like Chaucer's big heavy handed intros, like all that stuff, the physical humor. The story is pretty paint by numbers, but it's fun and spirited and it's funny, and the characters are all effective and relatable, or hateable if you're talking about Adamar, who is very easy to hate. Yeah, I mean, they really nail the audience investment part of the film, even though it's like a silly comedy. Like I said, it also managed to hit really well on a couple of emotional resonance scenes here, like the reunion with his father, or the scene when they're telling him that he should run and he does not want to run.
Yeah.
Even the knighting at the stocks there is like effective.
It'll put the feels in you.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Scenes.
And then
really well.
Like the scene that put the feels in me the hardest is the final jousting scene when Bettany gets up and he does his, good people, I missed my introduction. And he does his introduction and then he introduces Sir William Thatcher, and Tudyk's character says,
they called you Will.
Did you hear that, Will? That's your name now. Sir William Thatcher. Your father heard that. And that scene is you feel that. You watch this film, when that scene comes, you feel that. And the acting in all of those scenes is also like, I don't think it's in my experience, it's not common to see a film that is this funny and lively and bouncy, to have those scenes show up and also be really effective, and the acting be really effective in those scenes. And they really, really land. We're going to talk about the anachronisms in this film a lot because it's all over this film, but here, as far as like mise-en-scene stuff and not the music stuff, but the costumes and like the hairstyles and the dialogue that is like modern dialect and slang, but presented in the wrong time period. All that stuff is actually like really effective and kind of funny. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I would wear the heck out of Edward's jacket. The one he knights Will in is pretty fantastic. I like that thing a lot. It's like kind of chic still, but also medieval. Like, I don't know. Maybe that says more about me than it should, but I dug a lot of what they did. Like I said, it's not a like wholly, like the story and plot of this are very,
where it's going.
It's very basic, right? It's a change your stars, rags to riches kind of thing, right? But also with the love story, it's very paint by the numbers and that stuff. So that is what it is. But I really think this movie offered a lot more, especially if you look at the comedies of this time period. I mean, this is like Austin Powers time period, right? Where we're like the comedies that were coming out then were just like
they're more of a farce.
They're just farcy, like a lot of like this was like the peak of raunchy potty humor stuff, right? And this is not what this movie is. This is a entirely different thing for this time period, and I love that they took that. They did not stick with what was popular and went instead with what they wanted to do. And so I had the narrative come in at 13 here. I really think that this is, that's kind of a little on the high side for where we've rated most comedies we've talked about, but I really think it comes in there.
I'm not far from you. I think everything you said is exactly what I said, probably in just slightly different words. I've got it running here off to the side as we talk, and I only got to watch this one time, but I can see, like any movie you watch multiple times, I can see little things showing up here that, not that I missed, that I probably didn't give enough credit for. You brought up a good point, though. I mean, the two faces of storytelling, right? It's the Greek mask. It's comedy and it's drama, comedy and tragedy, right? It like, those are the two things that stories are about. And we don't give comedy enough credit sometimes. And it's easy to do, right? It's easy to get all, smug with your art house, and
it's easy to forget how hard it is to be funny until you see somebody who's a great actor fail horribly at it. And then you go, oh, that's right. This is a whole different skill that is also very hard.
Yeah, that's very true. And what I like about this film is it knows what it is and it doesn't try to abandon it. The whole film. It's a comedy with a solid story, and it goes with it. It owns it, and the whole film. And I appreciate that. And it's not complicated. It's just fun. It really is fun. I like that they jumped into it immediately. They did give a little bit of an exposition right at the first. Hey, you have to be a noble to compete, which is, like you said, it's kind of on the nose, and the text already told us that. But that discussion didn't last long, and so that's fine. It jumped right into the story, and it got rolling, and it is really funny. I mean, there's a lot of funny parts. I was telling you, I die laughing to look on Mark Addy's face whenever Heath Ledger's character William wins the first joust, and his friends are like, he won, and they look at him, he's like, he's still breathing, and like the look on Mark Addy's face is so funny when he does that.
I also love the look on his face in the opposite direction when I believe, now I'm having a hard time recalling exactly. I believe it is when they make that bet with all their money, and then he says he's going to lose for love, and the look of disappointment on Mark Addy's face is so profound and upsetting. He's like, oh no, this is my luck. Oh, he just looks like every bit of spirit has been sucked out of him.
And they've got that, like we were saying earlier, they got the subtle comedy. They have some of the joke comedy. They do a little bit of comedy with the camera. Maybe I'm sneaking into technique some, but I love that composition of them having the argument at the very beginning with the man hanging in the background.
Yeah,
I think that joke would actually be even better if they never even pointed out that guy was dead. It's just really, it's really funny. But like I said, for me, it was Paul Bettany with the comedy. All the other comedy was really good too. I really,
all the comedy was good, but Paul
Bettany
Bettany was like, it almost makes me sad that he's Vision, because I wonder what he would have done, right, if he had not gotten sucked into being Vision in like 400 Marvel movies, because he's really funny in this.
Yeah, I'll save my favorite line from Alan Tudyk for the after show.
I've got a bunch of lines that probably will fit in the after show a little bit better.
Yeah, and there are scenes where they have the characters, like you were saying, the anachronistic nature of it, where they were acting in a modern manner. But it's weird, but it actually works for this film. I'm cool with that. I don't have any problem with it. But so yeah, summarize it. Overall, it's formulaic, it's predictable, but man, it's a ton of fun. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. The theme of the film is just be your true self and do the right thing. And
it's effective. It's effective.
And the film does that too.
Yeah.
Like the film follows its own theme. Like it owns itself. Like I said from the very beginning, it is exactly what it is, and it doesn't change through the whole film. And I think that's commendable. So I have talked about all of that. I was at 12,000, but watching this and talking about this, and especially hearing what you said about comedy, it is so easy to fall into that we're not recognizing comedy kind of thing, and that's not fair. I'm actually going to come up to you at 13. I actually think you're probably spot on there. Next.
You want to start off? Or want me to start off with music?
Yeah, let me start off on music. I'll hit some of my high points here. The scores, it's fine. Honestly, the score's just fine. It's got like a standard medieval sound to it. But you know what I did notice? I think it's not this film's fault, but the instruments that are used in the soundtrack for Lord of the Rings have probably made anything that uses those instruments sound like Lord of the Rings. And it makes films sound like they're Lord of the Rings, but they're not. It's just the instruments that they use. I picked that up a few times. Not this film's fault, but the score to me it's good. There's some good elements that they use. For me, it's fine. But I think the original music is what stands out for a lot of people. So I'll speak a little bit more on that. I really liked a couple of little things they did with the music, like in the opening scene where the opening joust, where they were doing the "We Will Rock You." They have the guys playing the horns, so we get a little bit of this mixture of diegetic, non-diegetic here. The guys are playing the horns, but it's the sound of the guitar that they're playing the horns to. You just have to see
and
it
when
to
they put the
understand it.
horns, when the music stops, they put the horns down. Like
That's right. When the guitar stops, the horns go down. That's exactly
That's
right.
another one of those like little bits that you could easily overlook, but is actually kind of hilarious when you notice it.
Really funny. And it helps set the stage for what to expect when it comes to the classic rock that they're going to give you in this film. That really helps set the stage of what you're going to get. Man, and honestly, can you go wrong if your soundtrack is Queen or War or Bachman Turner Overdrive or David Bowie?
Right.
I mean, come on. Those are all fine.
And I'm going to steal a second of your time for a note that I have. Like all those bands, right? But they're used, like, we've talked about this in other films where the difference between just using some of your favorite songs or using songs that are effective or fit the scene, they're actually used well. Like they're used well. Like that just went by for me was the I had the film going too. It was the banquet scene where they dance to Golden Years.
My very next note. I love how that starts off as like chamber music and then it just
and that is
into
such a good scene, and the music
is
is used so well in that. It's so good.
It really is.
They really did a good job choosing the right song. When the classic rock stuff, they chose the right stuff. You know, using BTO for a montage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tip top, right? Worked great. There's some great montages in this, by the way.
Yeah, there are. And I think the Golden Years may be the last classic rock song we get until they go to London and you get Boys Are Back in Town. Yep. So, and that's what I like about this. So I said it in the last episode when we listened to the soundbite that one of the few things that I knew about this film is that it had modern music. Well, modern music. It had this classic rock.
Modern, modern in like the grand scale, right? Contemporary.
Compared to medieval times, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was worried that this film was gonna overplay that because, like I said, I remember in the trailer where they were really hyping up the "We Will Rock You." So all these years, this film was just this juxtaposition of classic rock and medieval story. But the reason why, I'll tell you the score. I gave music 13,000, and part of that is because they used just the right amount of classic rock. They did not overdo it. I was very happy with exactly the quantity that they gave you. They didn't do it through the whole thing. They didn't do it too much. They didn't do it too little. It was just a perfect amount.
So I was a hair higher than you. A lot of my notes are pretty close to the same. I know like just the reason, like the reason you didn't want to watch it originally, right? When this came out, I remember there being like a divisiveness about the film, just like anecdotally, because people thought it was a gimmicky film, but the use of like contemporary music never feels like a gimmick in this. It feels, it is a intentional choice, but it doesn't feel gimmicky. It feels effective. It's funny. It works, right? It doesn't feel like a cheap grab, right? I think it's, like I said, it's used in great effect. That they chose the right songs for the right moments. They did not overdo it. And then you get like the score of this, right, is not crazy, but like the director says that, using an orchestral score would also have been anachronistic because orchestras weren't invented or weren't a thing until after this, right? Like, so going to the music that was available in medieval times, you really just have like basically like lutes, right? Right. So there's not a lot of options. And like you mentioned, Lord of the Rings, this is the same year, Lord of the Rings, right? Isn't this the same year or the year before?
Would be right at the same. Yeah, I think it might be the same year,
right?
As
so
Fellowship, right?
Yeah,
2001.
Fellowship, yeah.
Is that right?
So, I mean, it's medieval, but what I love about the score is that they use the lutes and the music of the instruments of the time, which is very limited, and then they do this like neat thing where like depending on what's happening on screen, they don't change the melody or the themes of the music. They just blend into modern instruments and then back. So you have scenes where like, like the first scene when he's originally chasing down Jocelyn, trying to get her name. When she's talking, it starts out with just the medieval stuff, and then as he comes in all like swaggery and himself, it just fades very effortlessly into electric guitar taking over the lutes job, and it's the same song. They just modernize it. And then they go back. And I thought that was really cleverly used because it's not just willy-nilly. They don't just do it whenever. It is definitely tied to what's happening on screen the whole film through. And it's used cleverly. I thought it was a clever use. And then they did the same thing. Like you mentioned that the diegetic, non-diegetic use, they do the same thing where they come from one scene with the music being non-diegetic, and as they come into the next scene, it becomes diegetic. They blend back and forth between in and out of universe music the same way they blend between modern and classic. And I thought that was very clever and very effective, and also not heavy-handed. The overall note for this film in kind of every category was there was a very deft touch to all this anachronism and the humor, and like the whole film was very carefully handled, and it shows. Nothing ever felt overused. And I had the same thing in this category. They treaded just the right water with the classic rock, with the original score, and it all lands really well. And none of this music transcends, obviously, but there are some of the like original score melodies are kind of catchy. They're maybe not amazing, but they're kind of catchy. So like I said, I was a touch higher than you. I think you said you had 13, and I was right, and I was at 13.5, or you said whatever you had. I think you said 13, and I was at 13.5.
Yeah, 13.
I was at 13.5.
Yeah, that's really, really close. The 13.250 is pretty good. Pretty good score to settle on. Every time one of us says medieval times, I just think of the Cable Guy, and this is medieval times. I don't know why. That's never going to leave my head. All right, technique. What did you get on technique? I'm interested in hearing, because technique was a tough one for me. It really was.
So I had 12 for technique. There was a lot of stuff here that was very just run of the mill, down the middle, exactly what you'd expect kind of stuff. There's a couple of things here that I thought were handled very well, though. The combat is filmed better than like most of the combat in action films of this era, right?
Yeah.
Like this was peak. Hey, let's do the Michael Bay thing and zoom in so close that all you see is hands and blurs, and you just try to follow action kind of maybe. And then this is done. The camera moves around. It's a little motion heavy, and it's close, but not so close that you can't follow the fighting or the jousting, whatever. It is just enough to kind of convey the frantic feel that would be around combat anyway. I thought that was very well done. It was carefully handled. Just like I said, deft touch. A little bit of shaky cam, but not so much that you want to throw up or punch your TV like a Michael Bay film. There was a couple of dialogue scenes where they did a good job emphasizing the importance of the scene by doing slow zooms in as one character was talking. I thought that was nice. There was a reoccurring theme throughout the film while William is working his way to the top, while he is hiding who he really is, while he is the underdog, where they continuously, starting off with just the original group and then adding people as the film goes and the core group gets bigger, where they film them laying on the ground looking up to the camera talking, like with their heads in a circle.
Yeah.
And then
I like that shot.
And then I like that shot as well. And then they take that same theme, and then after William becomes Sir William Thatcher, and he is no longer hiding, and he's no longer an underdog, he has just won the championship, and he's beat Adamar, and he is victorious, and his arc now has him at the top of his game, right? He's made it to the top. He's done the things. He's changed his stars. The camera is now from Adamar's position on the ground looking up, and they do the same thing with the group circles the camera looking down from their now heightened position. I thought that was a nice thematic view of his character arc with that camera use. There's a couple things that weren't great. The slow motion, there's a couple of spots, and this is kind of a era thing. This was a thing that happened a lot at this time period when they would slow down footage, and it got kind of framey because they weren't shooting with high enough speed cameras.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
it's a little ugly, but it's also, it's not like it was a fault of the film. That's what slow motion looked like in 2000, right?
Right.
But it stands out now because we use so much better filming and so much better cameras that we don't see that anymore. So that does show up. And then the very end of the film, when they do the background replacement, they change the stadium into stars. That kind of looks terrible a little bit. There's like it doesn't look great. But there are like a couple of great montages in this, and I love a good montage. I'm on team montage, and they do it's not just that they're there. They're actually good montages, good music, good cuts. Like the whole way through, I really enjoyed the montages. I actually saw, I don't want to miscredit this, so if I'm wrong, I'm very sorry, but I believe this was an Ebert quote, that this was, if you take away the music bit, this is just Rocky on horses, which I thought was kind of funny.
This is appropriate. I got my other Rocky shirt on.
Perfect. But I kind of get it, right? So
yeah,
maybe that's why I like it so much. I mean, it's definitely funnier than Rocky. Rocky is for sure a better film across the board, but this definitely funnier than Rocky. Rocky's not real funny.
I almost did a Rocky quote within his voice, just out of pure instinct. Somebody says Rocky, I gotta say my line, but I'll hold it.
So yeah, I came in at 12. I think the technique on this, while not like changing the industry or having any kind of long lasting effects or anything, it also didn't have any like major glaring errors. And it was way more than you expect, or honestly than, especially this era, than you ever really saw in this style, like the comedy genre, like this kind of comedy genre, right? This, I think you look at most comedies of this era, most especially of this, like this lane of comedy of this era, we'd probably be looking at like 7s or 8s, if that.
Yeah.
I think they really did a good job with what they had. And, to me, I think they came in a little bit more than, right down the middle.
Yeah. So you're at...
I was at 12. Yeah, I was at 12.
12. I took a little bit of the same approach. I was a little bit more than down the middle, but I wasn't much more. I was at 10.5. There was one scene in particular that I did like the editing, or I liked how they edited the film or the scene. And it was where they were drafting the letter by the guys, and it was being read by Jocelyn. Like they would talk a little bit, and then she'd read some, and they'd talk a little bit more.
Yep.
I was thinking there were multiple letters for a while, and then I started picking up on it. I was like, oh, that's pretty clever. That's really good. The composition of the camera is very consistent. It's all very well framed. So they did a great job there. Again,
there's a great scene. Speaking of composition, sorry to steal your thunder again, but I'm tired, so I had a gigantic glass of Bang and whiskey to start the show off with. So buckle up. There's a couple of scenes, like you said, composition is really good, like really consistent and good in. But there's a scene that I really liked, and this is not just composition, but also a little choreography. But I particularly enjoyed the scene after the letter when they're at the church, when he is trying to make up poetry on the spot, and they have
doesn't work
it's
well.
like no, it doesn't. But they have this big wide shot on the two of them talking, and as each one of them, it's a beautiful shot. But as each one of them talks, they walk in the direction of the person who is listening. Right. So he starts talking and she's backpedaling, and then she starts talking and he's backpedaling. And that whole scene is, I really love the way that scene looks and plays out in front of you. I do
it's
too. Maybe not like the funniest or grandest scene in the film, but it is something about it really stands out visually to me. The sort of dance of their movement, along with the very gray church and the very bright windows that she's already mentioned, that she brings up as loving the, what does she call it? Something like the chaos of color or something like that in a world of gray. And it's very much, actually that scene just came on. It's a beautiful shot, But anyway, you were saying as a
Well, hold on. Let me see where I'm at my notes. There's a good shot of the group laying down.
I totally derailed you.
There's people in a circle. When William and Jocelyn are in the church and she asked to recite poetry, there's a nice continuous long shot of them. Yep, you got it. We're
just ran through it. I'm actually watching it right now, and that is actually she says a riot of color in an otherwise gray world. That's right.
Yeah.
I don't have subtitles on. I just remembered that off the top of my head. It's on right now, and it really is like it almost looks like. Man, I'd have to like really look at it. It almost looks like they desaturate the actors and the gray part a little bit.
They probably did.
And saturate the colors because the windows are
Yep.
so colorful compared to the rest of the scene.
Yeah, I would not put that past them. All very intentional. There was one other really good shot that I liked where Heath Ledger is just, thinking and longing over Jocelyn. And then the camera kind of, as we're just putting up with this, the camera tilts down and we're in line with Alan Tudyk's character and he's sleeping. And then that sets up the next joke for him. It kind of goes from one to the other. I thought it was good. But everyone that you mentioned are all standouts. I really did like it. I'm at 10.5. You're at 12. 11,250 good with you on that one?
Yeah, I think we can land there.
Yeah. All right. Longevity. So having not seen this film before, I had to look up what people remembered as far as some of the things. And one of the quotes that I found that people tend to remember from this film is the quote, the better a silly girl with a flower than a silly boy with a horse and stick. And it's a lance. Yeah. Hello. They remember that. But there was one line in here that really stood out that I enjoyed. And I don't know, it's a really well written line, and I think it's delivered well, and the scene ends on it. It's just good. It's where Roland tells Kate, he said, "Are you a woman or are you a blacksmith?" And she says, "Oh, sometimes I'm both." And I thought, man, that is a really good line. Like that's a really, really well written line. I really enjoyed that. That one's really, really stuck with me. I'll remember that one.
I think if you were to watch this a couple more times, which I really hope you do, because I think this is one of those movies that,
well, I will because I bought it. It was either like $2.99 to rent or $3.99 to purchase, and so I just purchased it.
I think this is one of those films that the more you watch it, the more it grows on you. Like, and it sounds like it left a good impression on you on first viewing, which
I will watch it again for sure. And I will definitely put it on.
And I think this is one of those films. But I think as you watch it and become a little more familiar with it, you will find things that kind of come up from this film, like quote or reference wise, a little, like, not a ton. You're not going to find this in our highly quoted films category, right? But like I have definitely in the intervening time between seeing this and now heard people say things, and I was like, that is totally a Knight's Tale reference. And right, like there are just little things here and there that will totally come up. It's got a smaller audience than some of our like super widely quoted films has, but like it's a devoted audience. I mean, think of how hard our Discord pushed for this film.
Ooh, they did. They pushed, but I'm glad they did because it.
I'm going to be honest with you. If they hadn't have pushed for it, this was going to be a staff selection. You were going to see this movie either way.
Eventually, you were going to force me to watch this. So it was tough for me on Longevity because having only seen it once, I think you bring up a good point. There's an element to this that probably gets stronger with a couple of viewings. Not multiple every time it gets better and different, but there is probably an element to multiple viewings.
Well, and it's
especially since I haven't even seen it once.
And this is a tough category in any film when you first see it the first time, because you don't know how many times you've walked right by references to this and not known it, right? Yeah. Throughout your life, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So this, like, this is one of those things where, like, I would say, I still occasionally bump into an In the Wild reference to this film. And you, until today, would not have gotten that, right? So it's hard for you to put to accredit, though, the quotability of this film having not experienced it.
Yeah. Mark Addy's acting is really good. I just saw the scene where Jocelyn's maid tells William what her name is. It's Jocelyn, and and Roland's staring at her as she walks away, and Paul Bettany just reaches over and closes his mouth for him. Just just little things like that are really, really funny in this film. Hey, one thing that really stuck out for me on longevity has to do with that classic rock. Strangely enough, we always talk about when a film is a period piece, it really helps it from seeming too dated.
Right.
But I think the classic rock choices help with this, because if you think of it, if they had picked rock songs from like the early 2000s, that would not have helped it in this category.
It dates it in a weird spot, right?
It really does. It puts it in a strange spot. But by putting those 70s classic rock songs, it completely changes it. So I think the longevity really, even now, like even if I heard sadly, I can't even remember what rock songs were out in the early 2000s. But
you got like your Chevelles and your Salivas, and your Click Click Boom, and your The Red.
That category would be really low. Longevity would be really low if they use music like that. But hey, it works. I think it's stronger because they picked the songs that they did. For longevity, I'm at 11,000. Feels like I'm a little low after having said everything we said, and you may have to help me on this one because, like we just talked about, I've only got one viewing in 46 minutes of a second viewing as we're talking here.
I'm considerably higher than you on this one. Like I said, I think it holds up really well. Like you said, the period piece really helps. I have here the classic rock or the classic music really helps. The thematically, right? The like class warfare bits, and I mean, not just the change your stars, rags to riches, I'm a peasant, I want to be a knight stuff, but also like when he becomes a knight, he's picked on for being a poor knight, right? Like the class warfare stuff is like maybe even more relevant now than it was when the film came out. Like possibly consider like current event, kind of like the narrative of current event stuff. The laughs are still very effective. The themes of the film, like you said, like I said, changing your stars is basically like, it's not just the American dream. It's been like the human dream for hundreds of years. It's just got a different name to it in this, right? Everyone wants everyone wants that, right? It's easy to identify with the characters. It's really quotable. Like there's a lot of stuff in this film that is silly and brief in a way where like you might not use it a lot, but you're going to think of stuff. You're going to think of little bits of this film once in a while. And it's also, I'm going to say, borderline infinitely rewatchable because it's just so easy. I mean, it's over 2 hours and it goes by in like a minute.
It's easy to watch.
It's so easy to watch, and it's, it's your first viewing, and it's probably like my ballpark 20th.
Oh, wow.
Right? Over, it's one of those films that like, it's a comfort food film for me. Like it's one that I just throw on to like, hey, I want something in the background that's funny while I'm doing something else. Cause I just want to have something comfortable on to make me laugh a bit while I'm doing whatever.
You're not putting Schindler's List on.
Right.
Do the launch.
It's a great one for that. But it doesn't ever get less funny. I sat down and watched this carefully, taking notes, and I've seen it 20 times before, and I laughed a bunch still, right? It doesn't, the humor is effective in a way where it doesn't get old. The performances don't get old. And we're coming up, we're over 20, we're 20 years into it, coming up on 21 years into this film's life, and it still hits, right? You just saw it the first time and you were way more fond of it than you anticipated. And that says something to me. Like, if you can watch it for the first time over 2 decades after its release and think, hey, that's a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
It's got legs on it. It's got legs. So I came in at 13.5 on longevity.
All right. That's there's a little bit of a difference. Let's not quite split it. I'll move over to your side. I'm cool with that. I think I'm giving myself a little bit of leeway here because I think having seen it so many and me having seen it once, I think there's some validity to that.
Longevity is the hardest category to rate on first viewing.
Really
on first viewing, it's really
is.
difficult.
Yeah. All right, let's say 12,500, so a little bit more than half towards your side.
Yeah, it works.
All right, our last category, uniqueness. You want to take a stab at uniqueness?
I'm going to answer your question with a question. Hey, Josh, name another film like this.
Yeah, very much so.
Right?
Yep,
exactly. Just pick one. Just pick one that also feels like this one, right? You can't.
There's no Joust films out there that stick with that.
Right.
From the beginning to the end. It's a film.
There is no Joust films out there, period. There's no Joust films out there that stick to it, period. There's no Joust films out there that stick to it where the jousting is also not even really the main part of the story, period. Mm-hmm. Right? Like there's a lot of things you can start off with. There's no film like, right? There's not I honestly can't think of another medieval film that does the classic rock thing, right?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
it's very, very few.
The presentation is very unique. The dedication to the story, the way it is presented and the way it is written, very unique. The comedy in the environment, the modern sensibilities and dialect and the medieval time, all that stuff, it's all very unique. Now, what is not unique is like the base story, the love story, the drive for success, that the Rocky-esque parts of the story are very tropey and very done before. It definitely has a lot of treaded ground in like the structure of the film, but there's a lot of the stuff around the edges, a lot of the forward facing stuff to this film that do feel very unique. And like I said, neither one of us could think of a single film that looked, sounded, or felt like this film does. So, it's original. It is an original screen. It is named after one of the real Chaucer's works, but it is not based on it. There's no material inside.
Not close.
Yeah, no material inside that overlaps, just the name.
There may be, there's some jabs at it,
yes.
Where Chaucer says something to the two guys that he gambled and lost. He says something like, "You had me naked for a day, but I'm going to have you naked forever."
Yeah, I will eviscerate you in fiction. I was naked for a day. You'll be naked for eternity. Yeah.
So I wonder, are those two characters that he has in one of his with the actual
A Knight's Tale, the one he wrote? Yeah, I don't know. I never read it,
or Canterbury Tales or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Who knows?
But it is by no means an adapted screenplay, right? It is not at all by that, right? So it does have that stuff going for it, but like I said, it does also have a lot of the tropey bits that are very, very, very tropey, and so we can't be like giving this thing like a 19, right? It's not going to fall like there. But I did come in at 13.5 because it just feels, we talked about uniqueness before as another one that's hard to put a definitive, concrete, tangible value on, because there is, just like longevity, those last two, there's a lot of like, how does it feel? Does it feel like it's got legs? Does it feel unique, right? And while there is definitely some stuff on paper that is not unique in this one, the overall feel of this film is not duplicated anywhere.
I was at 12. I was getting there, close to where you are. You said the same things that I have in my notes. So the mixture of the medieval and the modern, but the couple of things that had me evaluating this higher than average was the combination of the music and the story. I know we talked about that in the music, but I think that resonates in a lot of categories. So the combination of the music and the story's just anchored on jousting, and it never wavers from that. He jousts in the opening, and that's the mechanism that tells the story to the very last scene.
They even kind of throw a nod to it where he wins the sword and he's like, "We're not doing that anymore. It's jousting or nothing." Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm there close with you on uniqueness. I'm going to continue and give you a little bit more credit here on a little bit more than the halfway mark. I had 12. You had 13,500. 13,000 sound pretty fair for uniqueness. Is that land?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good spot for it.
Okay. Well, that gives us a pretty good total. But
I have a question. I think you're going the same place I'm going. I think this is definitely like a. I'm gonna let you run to this one. I know a lot of times you throw it to me for a special category. This is your first viewing, and I want to know if you think it deserves one and what you might give it a special category in.
Yeah, I want to give it a bump for a special category. I was pleasantly surprised with this film. I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did.
I knew you would. I really knew you would. I told you would.
It's not going to land on my favorite films of all time, but it lands exactly where it probably should, and that's just it's in my rotation. If it's on television, I'm probably going to stop. Honestly, I'm probably going to stop and just leave it on. It's one of those films for me. Like you said, it's one that you'll have on just to have on.
It's a very comfort food film. It really is.
Yep, very, very much so. And it has Paul Bettany doing the best introductions of people that I've ever heard in my life. So I want to give it a $500 special bonus here. And if you agree, then that's going to take the total to $63,500. You want to tell us where A Knight's Tale lands on our guest list?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I could see it. Maybe not. I don't know. When I look at this list and I see where it lands on the guest list and the films that it lands against on the guest list, I could see it a little higher. But I could kind of also see it a little lower. I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah. I try to look at them as groupings. I look at a handful of like 5 or so and say, does that land in the group? I think so. I think it's probably harder to judge on the guest list because of what's around it.
So when I look at the guest list, it is right above The Village and like not much. And honestly, I think so. It's right below Willow and right above The Village, and it comes in at 22. And I think, honestly, while I think I like this better than Willow, the thing that actually gets me the most is that it is as close as it is to The Village. And I think this is a lot better than The Village. I didn't like The Village very much. I think the closeness there is what actually digs me a little bit. But like I said, when I say I could see it higher, I look at the small distance between it and The Village. And then when I say, well, I don't know, maybe it's not that bad, is when I see where it is and it's very close. It's only about $1,000 off of Willow. I like it more than Willow, but also Willow has some strong things going for it that, especially in the technique department where it really separates itself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So like I said, it is easy to like use in your head, start moving it up and down. I'm not totally disappointed with where it landed, but maybe a little, maybe a hair. What I'm curious about, so this would be a curious one for me, right? Before we go on to the definitive list, what I'm curious about revisiting on this in a reconciliation episode is just having you watch it like 2 or 3 more times and then see how you feel after a couple of viewings, to see if some of these categories that we split, or even maybe some that you came up to me on, maybe, I've seen it so many times, I came down a little bit over time, and then you seeing it just 2 or 3 would feel like maybe they should be higher. Like, I'm curious to see having more than one viewing, but less than 20, where you would land on a
settled in.
Yeah, where you would settle on a reconciliation. Just, even if we don't change anything, I think it'd be a good chat.
Well, on the definitive list, comes in at number 41. We now have a total of 53 films on the definitive list.
Did I see correctly that maybe there's a few more definitive films available for the general public to see?
Yeah, there is. So if you'd like to see specifically where this lands and where the others are, all the way from 1 down to 53, we've modified our website. So you can now see the entire list instead of just the top 25.
If I remember correctly, that may have been a request from a user in the Discord, which you can find at igloomedia.com/Discord.
That is exactly why you joined the Discord, because 1, this film was recommended from Caleb in on Instagram as a listener recommendation. And then they revolted on Discord.
They did,
to force me to change programming.
And if you could
programming around to bump it in.
And if you couldn't tell with my feigned memory bits there, that was a shameless plug for the Discord, because you should be there to help influence the show. The Discord really does show up a lot.
Yeah,
it's the people that interact with us on a daily basis, and man, did they revolt on this one, especially after you expressed a disinterest in doing this on the show. the uprising on Discord was savage. The uprising on Discord when I said I wasn't going to show you the picture of me with the mullet in RoboCop, also savage, and that also happened to our patrons, so they got to see that travesty.
And I'll tell you, recommendations that we received in Discord combined with something that I read just the other day. I was reading an article about Edgar Wright's top 50 comedies of all time. There was a comedy that I had downplayed. I had said, it got recommended, and I said, it's probably not going to happen. Maybe it will, but it probably won't. And then I saw it pop up on Edgar Wright's list, and I thought, okay, so there's got to be something here. This is twice now that I've seen it. And we've added it to the programming here. Probably in the next couple of months, it's going to show up. We would probably have never have picked it, but hey, that's what happens when you get in Discord and start plugging the films that you want to see.
And you get to be the squeaky wheel.
That's right. It's amazing what does the Joker say? Look what I did with a couple cans of gasoline and a few guns or whatever, whatever it was. All right, Joe, coming up on the next episode, we are being joined by a very close guest of the show, a very close guest of Earglue Media. She has got some things in the works with another staff member at Earglue Media, and she has picked one of her favorite films to have us evaluate. I'd like to hear what this is. I'd like to share with the people what this film is. You got something you can play for us?
I do. I always do. Let me break out the old tape deck and see what we've got here. You're a wizard, Harry.
I think people are going to know what show that. Well, they're going to wonder what rendition did they get from.
I don't know. It sounds totally legit to me.
Yeah, everyone knows that film. What is that, like the off-Broadway version of that film?
It's definitely not on Broadway.
Oh, my dear goodness.
It's like, oh, man. Yep. That's the film. And it's totally gonna get 20,000 across the board.
I'll be anxious to see where it actually does. I was thinking about it this morning that it's gonna be one of those that, from a uniqueness standpoint, the first one in that franchise probably does better than any subsequent films in the franchise.
Yeah, but I think it's also going to suffer really hard from being a direct port of a book, right?
Just direct, yeah.
It's an exact direct port of a book. So,
but I think the music's going to do pretty well, because that soundtrack is. I can sing the song in my head to the theme song. Like,
honestly, I've only seen it once, and I cannot even recall the music from seeing it once.
I think if you heard it on a commercial, you would know 100% what the song is, because it's on all the commercials. It's on all the theme parks and stuff like that.
Total side jag. The scene where they're telling him to run just came on, and man, is the acting good in that.
Yeah,
he looks desperate, genuinely desperate. I can't. It's muted, and I can still feel his emotions through just his face.
The scene that I'm watching is Alan Tudyk's best line from the film. All right, Joe, what's been going on over at the Barrel House? You've had some things cooking for a while. What you got going, and what you got coming up?
Man, I don't even know. I can't remember what's happened since we last recorded. I had a couple of lives. I think the most recent live here, I did so very selfishly, I like the smoky whiskeys, right? I think you do too. I've kind of gotten you on the smoky whiskey train.
Oh yeah.
And the problem is that the smoky whiskeys I like are all like $60+ a bottle, right? And that's hard to justify.
Thank you for that, by the way. Yeah, thank you for that,
You're welcome. So I did a live where I bought like a bunch of sub $30 smoky whiskeys, smoky scotches to try to find. I was trying to find one that I could like justify like as a keep in stock kind of bottle, right? Like I can't, well, I can keep Ardbeg in stock if I don't drink it a lot, right? But
right,
you know,
yeah, exactly.
It's tough to like have that as my favorite. I just want to relax kind of drink and also always have it on hand because it's expensive. So I bought a bunch of, I believe 4 budget peated scotches and gave them a face off and found a new favorite, a new standby daily drinker. Daily in quotes. I actually don't drink every day, but probably like 4 days a week. But you know, I can drink as much of this as I want and it's not really gonna destroy my wallet kind of whiskey. So that was really fun.
Yeah. That's cool.
And the last episode that actually, as this show hits the internet, there will be a brand new episode of Barrel House out the day before, maybe, if my mental calendaring is right. And that will be...
You're going to rely on your mind right now?
No. But if I'm wrong, then hey, it's a sneak peek. And it will be the Buffalo Trace episode. So...
Oh, very cool.
Dig into that.
Very
yeah.
Cool. Well, if you want to find all the things for the Film Appraisers, it's real easy. Filmappraisers.com, Instagram, email, links to the Patreon, links to the Discord. Everything that you could need is there. It's actually going to take you to our network page.
Yeah, and while you are scoping out the network page, seeing all of our links to all of our things, also be sure to join the Discord, like numero uno, join the Discord and come participate in funding influencing the show and giving us direct feedback. And as important as direct feedback in Discord, actually maybe even more important, is rating and reviewing the show on iTunes. The algorithm is our overlord, so please help with that as well. And I don't know if we say this enough, but we have the Patreon and we have the Discord and we have iTunes, all that stuff. And it also helps an absolute ton if you just go tell one person, for real, in person, for real, in a friend, family, whatever. Just go tell one other person to check out the show. If everybody told one other person to check out the show, it would be fantastic, right? That kind of word of mouth is genuinely the best way to spread the news of how ridiculous we are.
Very good. Yeah, please do so. Hey, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Joe and I are going to head over to the after show. We'd love for you to join us over there. Patreon.com/filmappraisers if you're interested. Patrons, we're going to see you over there. So thank you all for listening. Goodbye.
The Film Appraisers was created by Josh McCrae, produced by Joe Kane and Josh McCrae, graphics by Albert Padilla, and voiceover by Morgan Marshall.
The thoughts, expressions, views, opinions, and the like are those of the guests and the host of the Film Appraisers and do not represent the opinions of any entity associated with the creation or distribution of the films discussed herein.